member from Kitchener-Waterloo.
Thank you very much. To the Premier. Last June, Don Drummond, the hand-picked Liberal cutting czar, went on TV to say that the Liberal plan would mean firing 100,000 people. How many people will the Premier be firing in this spring's budget?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me say to the member opposite that when she has an opportunity to read the budget, she will see, Mr. Speaker, that we are continuing to invest in the people of this province, to invest in their talent and their skills, to invest in infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, to work in partnership with business and to create a dynamic business environment, Mr. Speaker, and to set up a retirement security plan, Mr. Speaker, that will allow people to have more security when they retire. So, in fact, the plan that we ran on, and in fact, the fiscal assumptions that that party ran on, Mr. Speaker, are exactly what we are implementing right now. And yes, we are being responsible. And yes, Mr. Speaker, we have committed to eliminating the deficit by 2017-18. But we are not doing that by cutting and slashing, Mr. Speaker.
Answer.
That's what the opposition party said they were going to do, Mr. Speaker. We're making the investments that we know are going to lead to it.
Thank you. Supplementary.
So the Liberals seem to think that Mike Harris-style cuts and privatized hydro is the only way to invest in Ontario. The Premier seems to think that you can either have public hydro companies or public transit. She doesn't believe that you can have both, but I know that she's wrong. Just last year, the Auditor General found that $8 billion was wasted on P3s. When the budget is introduced, the Premier will be insisting she needs to privatize hydro to pay for transit. But will she miraculously be able to find billions to waste on more sweetheart P3 deals?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's just step back from the premise of this question and just make it clear that the reason, Mr. Speaker, that we are able to make the investments that we are, Mr. Speaker, in transit, in roads, in bridges, Mr. Speaker, is that we have made some decisions, one of which is to review the assets of the people of Ontario, Mr. Speaker, that are owned by the people of Ontario, and to make sure that we can leverage those assets in order to invest in the infrastructure that is needed for the 21st century, Mr. Speaker. So, underlying that decision is the need to invest in transit and transportation infrastructure. So, in fact, the plan that the party opposite ran on, the third party ran on, was the plan that we had constructed, Mr. Speaker, that we had developed, and it's the plan that we're implementing, including a review.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
So last April, the Premier of this province said, we won't cut education, health care or social services. And yet somehow, here we are. The Liberals are cutting education, they're cutting health care, and they're cutting services. Liberal incompetence and corruption shouldn't cost Ontarians. Can the Premier explain why she can always find the checkbook when she needs to bury a Liberal scandal, but that same checkbook is mysteriously missing when it comes to schools or childcare?
Dangerously close to unparliamentary, and I'm going to remind you in any other questions coming up, it better not get that close again.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, I've known the member opposite since she was a school community advisor in Toronto, and I know she understands how much money we have put into education, and I know that she understands that we continue to increase our education budgets, Mr. Speaker. I know she also understands that school boards have to make local decisions, Mr. Speaker. But she also, in May 2014, I just want to make a comment on the member's quote. She said,
thank you. Finish, please.
The decisions that we're having to make, Mr. Speaker, and the plan that they ran on. I'm going to quote CBC News from May 28th of 2014, and I quote, Catherine Fife, the Ontario NDP candidate for Kitchener-Waterloo, says her party's proposed Savings and Accountability Minister would look to find efficiencies in the healthcare and post-secondary education sectors in order to find $600 million in annual savings. More than we've